That was some of the worst advice I have ever heard in my entire life. That woman needs to have her license revoked, and if she ever gets it back again, if she ever gets it back again, it shouldn't be until she's gone through some major counseling and life experience. Okay, I don't even know. Everything is getting filmed out of order and uploaded out of order of the original thought. So I don't even know which one you're going to see first. But either way, at the moment, I'm talking about the show City of Chaos. It's a Chinese drama, and the other video that I did, I had only seen 9 episodes of it. Now I've only seen 10 episodes of it. Episode 10. Speaking of Bai, let's get to know Bai a little bit better. Bai is one of the 2 main characters of this show. He apparently was in the army for a while, and given some of the scenes we've seen, he clearly has PTSD over the people that he has had to kill within his job. Then there's also the weight of, these are like all spoilers, okay? Be careful, spoilers. I have to go into spoilers when I'm talking about like stuff like this. So if you don't want City of Chaos completely spoiled, it's only 10 episodes in, so... But if you don't even want 10 episodes worth of being spoiled, go watch the show first. Bai's younger brother, a while ago, because of everything that's happened in his life, it would take too much to explain absolutely everything, but just know that his family has been tangled up with this gang for a long time, and his father died because of the gang. I don't know when his mother died or when it was that she died, but I'm gonna guess she died while he was away in the army, and he's got a younger brother. Bai's way of handling life is to be pretty tough. And his younger brother, he was rather tough with him, and when his younger brother all of a sudden went and joined this gang that got their father killed, Bai was furious at him and kicked him out of the house. Bai went and joined the gang properly and got involved in all kinds of things, and you heard before that Bai said the only reason he was alive before was for his younger brother. Then, when he found out his brother is dead, and he doesn't have answers to why, so now his only reason now for living is to find out exactly why his brother died. So he's got major issues, especially revolving around death. And then, whether you've seen the other video about it or not, Bai is the one that stabbed Zhao Wu, and he feels incredibly guilty and incredibly like it's entirely his fault for killing Zhao Wu, because he wasn't the one that killed him, but as he himself said, I hadn't seen this episode 10 yet when I filmed that other video, but now I've heard it from Bai's own mouth. He himself says, if I hadn't stabbed him, he probably would have been able to get away. So he carries the weight of being responsible for Zhao Wu's death, even if he wasn't the one that technically killed him. He did contribute, and he knows it. So he's got specifically and especially the weight of his younger brother, because he feels it's his fault that his younger brother died because he kicked him out of the house instead of being gentler with him or trying to reason with him or anything. He lost his temper and kicked him out. So he figures it's his fault his brother got down the path that he went and died the way he did. And he figures it's his fault that Zhao Wu died. And considering they're about the same age... And so, okay, speaking of healthy ways and unhealthy ways of handling death... Bai, already doesn't have a healthy way of handling it, because as we see, like, he flies off the handle, he starts taking these pills that amp him up. They must be some kind of adrenaline thing. So he goes off and has this adrenaline rush, and he has to work out the adrenaline, so he's like boxing, but he's doing it with all these chains on him to create extra weight and stress on himself. And he himself pretty much, like he said, with his own mouth, when you make a mistake, you should be punished for it, so he's punishing himself. This is his way of handling this. Bai, and I'll keep calling him Character B because that's what I called him in the other one. Character B and Bai and Mr. Yu and Zhao Wu's wife. There was a scene where they were all in Zhao Wu's wife's restaurant, and they were getting drunk because of trying to handle Zhao Wu's death. And the wife is crying because she's looking at pictures of him, and then comes in there and he's supposed to be there and he's not. And that's what was just happening. And then Bai goes, B brings Bai home because B wasn't drunk, but Bai is. So B brings Bai home and puts him to bed. And the next morning when he gets up, like, we see the scene where Bai is having a nightmare. He's imagining all of these people that he's killed before. And so he wakes up and he's freaking out and he grabs his pill and makes a run for it. And then you find out, it was quite fascinating, childhood friends and how well they know you and what they know about you. B realizes that Bai is gone, and what does he do? Mr. U, where would Bai go if he's emotionally unstable? And Mr. U knows where he is, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows exactly what has to happen before Bai is going to calm down and stop. Interesting. But with all of that behind us, knowing all of that about Bai, then one of the worst pieces of advice I've ever heard of in my life, and I am not exaggerating here. We see this scene where Bai has gone to a psychologist or somebody. He's on one of those layback chairs and talking to her. So she's some kind of mental health practitioner. I don't know what her degree is, but clearly she shouldn't have a degree at all, because he's laying there on the bed and he's talking about his brother and Zhao Wu. Like, it starts in the middle of a conversation, but that's clearly what he's talking about. What is her advice? Okay, she tells him he needs to stop taking the pills. Yes, that is very good advice. That is a destructive path. I said in the other video that you need to let people process the way they need to process. That doesn't count. That is a very destructive to your own body thing. Pills and abusing yourself are not okay. Even in the middle of your processing, that is a destructive behavior that should be stopped. Although you have to do it very gently and very carefully and consider the individual. But still, she was right about that. And then she's like, stop thinking about your brother and Zhao Wu. I'm like, excuse me? Horrible advice. What the crap, woman? This is supposed to be where he comes to process this and come to terms with it. Why are you, the doctor, telling him to stop talking about it? Excuse me? And she says, try to live a normal life instead. Excuse me? And he says, what on earth does that mean? Good question. When he has not processed anything, you can't live a normal life when you're still caught up in all these emotional state. So she says, what does a normal life look like? Try to do chores. Okay, that's not going to help for long. Okay, yes, that's a physical activity. And when you're depressed and not doing well mentally, yes, physical activity is a good idea. But it's not, like, that's the kind of advice that a friend might give if you're slipping and need to, like, stop yourself from slipping. That's not, why is the doctor? And then she says, try buying and raising a pet. And I'm like, hold on, woman, this is getting worse and worse. What do you mean go and buy a pet and try to raise a pet? Okay, yes, if you are in a depressed state and you have, like, nothing to live for, which is what he's already said, he's basically got nothing to live for. I mean, yes, he's trying to find the answers about his brother, but now, like, he's had a serious crash with Zhao Wu. So yes, if you're in a depressed state, I've heard many people who struggle with, like, chronic depression say that having a pet in the house, having something that is relying on you to keep it alive, will help. However, when he's in the middle of this kind of the state that he's in, and it's not just a depressive, I don't want to get out of bed and get dressed, he's got a very volatile response. He's very angry, he's very active, he goes boxing on adrenaline to get this out. He's not, and she's telling him to literally go and buy a pet and start raising a pet? Is this really the right time to be doing it? Isn't this just a little bit like telling someone to buy a pet at Christmas time for their kid? Pets are lifelong commitments. And with the kind of life he's living and the kind of state he's in, you're telling him to go and buy a pet? Like, what? And then, here is some of the worst advice I've ever heard in my life. She tells him to go and get a girlfriend. Go and fall in love. Get a girlfriend. That woman needs to get her license revoked, and she needs to never get it back again until she has been through some of this stuff and actually understands what the bleep is wrong with what she just said. This guy is literally dealing with PTSD. He is literally dealing with the weight of all these deaths. He knows the names, he knows the ages, he knows the nationality of everybody that he's killed, whether it was wartime or not. There were kids involved, and He's dealing with the death of his brother that he feels incredibly crushing guilt over, and he's dealing with the death of Zhao Wu, who he literally stabbed. It's not even just like, I mean, it's not direct, but it's more direct even than his brother was, and his brother's guilt was bad enough. Now he's got Zhao Wu's guilt, and Zhao Wu's guilt is also tied to Mr. Yu, who is his best friend from childhood, like somebody that he grew up with and is extremely close to, and he is watching how Zhao Wu's death is affecting Mr. Yu, and he knows perfectly well that he's the one that played a big part in this, and he can't admit it to Mr. Yu. He can't admit it to anybody, because if the gang finds out that he had anything to do with it, he would probably die. And what's that gonna do to Mr. Yu? Is that really gonna help Mr. Yu to then lose the only other person that's as close as his brother? And this doctor tells Bai to go and get a girlfriend. She tells him to stop thinking about his brother and Zhao Wu and go and get a girlfriend. Okay, considering how long that is, it just might be a video all by itself. So, yeah, reactions to death. If someone tells you to go and get a girlfriend in order to, or a boyfriend, any kind of romantic relationship, when you are literally still in the middle of trying to deal with what's going on, if they tell you to quit thinking about it and go get a girlfriend instead, don't talk to that person for a while. Just, that is terrible, terrible, terrible advice. Do not ever listen if someone tells you to do that. They don't have a clue what they're talking about. And if a doctor ever tells you that, you might want to consider writing them up and reporting them. Oh, my word. And by the way, since I'm tacking something else onto the end of this video anyway, I forgot to say that doctor, even more irksome, with her seriously bad advice, the look on her face. The little smile and head shake, like that poor boy that just doesn't understand my awesome advice. I kind of wanted to take her license and slap her over the face with it. Bye.